Hey guys, what's up? I got everybody here from TMI. Don't forget to write us an email at tmipodcast2018. That's tmipodcast2018 at gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. Also, check us out on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter at TMI underscore podcast 2018. Just use the numbers, don't spell it out.
Ooh, don't forget facebook.com/TMI podcast 2018.
Follow us on the Apple Podcast app. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review.
All you YouTubers out there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, TMI Podcast 2018. Look for the popcorn bucket.
That's right. Also, check us out on Spotify and the Google Play Music app for all you Android users. Follow us and subscribe everywhere. We appreciate it. We're doing it for you guys, the fans. Thank you.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Dave Odinson Warhowski, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
We're back. Hey, not only are we back, today is a seminal episode because it is episode
25.
We're 25. It's a silver anniversary.
This is our, and I didn't buy you guys anything.
I did buy you guys something. I got you a matching Silver Surfer silverware set.
Oh, thank you.
Silver anniversary, and I can only say that once because it's a mouthful.
I didn't even get a card. I'm going to have to make it up.
Yeah, I'm sending flowers.
I do appreciate all the balloons you put up, Jim, in the studio. Very nice.
Did you appreciate that? Thank you.
I did. I'm going to suck the helium out later in the
25 episodes. Remember back in April of this year, how young we were?
Oh, so young, so naive.
The way we were. Yeah.
Yes. So there you go. 25. We're still going strong here.
And
It's
anybody out there that's hung with us from the opening episode,
Yes. Thank you very much, and we apologize.
I think we've improved over time.
I regress every now and again.
Like a fine wine.
I do not shy away from the fact that I do listen to our episodes after they launch, just to hear how many times I stammer over my own words. So.
You know what the great thing is I have the power of veto, of edit. So
That is true.
So I look out for all you guys.
There are a couple times you've cut out some of my funny lines, but that's fine.
For the good of the show.
For the good of the show. I still lament the diatribe we went down with Teen Titans Go.
With Michael Bolton?
Michael Bolton. Yeah. Because no other review brought up that point that stupid snow leopard lion. Yep. For the good of the show.
For the good of the show, yes.
For the good of the show.
Jim, you're power hungry.
If he was that hungry, Mike, you and I wouldn't even be on here.
Well, let's get into it. 25th anniversary show, so we have some 25th anniversary news.
Yeah, we do indeed. So, first thing I want to do is go back to last week's episode. I can't get off this, and I apologize for anybody who's listening to this episode who has not listened to last week's episode. We reviewed The Predator, and I think we all had kind of mixed reviews on it. But Jim, you brought up a point about the fact that these creatures, we were destroying our environment and it was going to become this hothouse. And so they were going to be able to live here once we were gone. That makes no sense to me because these creatures hunt with heat sensors. So if the world becomes hot, then doesn't your prey just become part of the background?
It just blends in. It would. Yes.
So that makes no sense to me whatsoever. So, okay.
Well, then they're taken over by the aliens.
There you go. Or the Terminators.
Yeah, in their own franchise, please. In their own franchise.
Understood.
Keep it in your own universe. So that made no sense to me, and it just bugged me. Like, again, I was listening to the episode, and you brought that up, and the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. But
So
I think any plot point of the Predator, the more you think about it, the less sense that it makes.
I think there was I did find an article and it was like 10 plot points, like plot holes in the thing. And I'm just like, wow. So as much as we tore it apart, there are others out there who really went to town with it. So that I'll get off that. We're done with the Predator. We don't need to talk about that anymore. Are either of you aware of the fact that production is underway now for a Men in Black spinoff?
No.
Neither one of the main stars, Will Smith or Tommy Lee Jones, are in this. In its wake, we have Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. So we have a Thor and Valkyrie reunion, which
as the two new Men in Black.
I'm assuming, yeah, but you can't even call it Men in Black. If one of your leads is a female, is it
People in Black?
So right now the movie is untitled, but Chris Hemsworth, if anybody follows him on Instagram, he has a really funny video, like a kind of just a little snippet behind the scenes. But yeah, so I had no clue this is going on, but I think he's really kind of proven himself in the kind of humor genre. So
he has, yes. And he was actually not bad in Ghostbusters.
I thought he was very funny in Ghostbusters. It was a great casting. So that's going on. I don't know when it's being released. And like I said, at this point, there's no title for it. Yeah, you can't call it Men in Black. The other thing is, we spoke about this off the air, which is Joaquin Phoenix is starring in a new Joker movie.
A standalone, right?
A standalone. Not the only standalone, because supposedly there's a second Joker movie in development, which makes... It doesn't. I don't know what the hell DC is thinking of. I mean, did we not learn anything from Ants and A Bug's Life or Volcano, Dante's Peak? Let's see what Armageddon, Deep Impact. Like all these like same themed movies came out at the same time.
The Prestige and The Illusionist, right?
Yeah, there you go. Turner and Hooch and K9. Let's go one more. Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down. Same story. So I don't know. I don't know who's starring in the other Joker. But this one, there's a little behind-the-scenes snippet where you see him in his facial makeup, and most people are loving it. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, and as we were discussing before, it's very basic clown-type makeup. Not really scary, but, it is scary in its own way, and if you find clowns frightening. And Jeff, as you brought up, very similar in design to the masks that Heath Ledger and his gang were wearing at the beginning of The Dark Knight during the bank heist.
So I don't know if it's going to somehow tie into that, if it's just its own beast. And listen, I like Joaquin Phoenix. He's done some fun stuff. He doesn't have the facial scars that Heath Ledger had. So I don't know. I don't know where they're going with it. I just thought that was very interesting. We'll see. And then the only other news I have, which is, Jim, this is right down your alley because as a James Bond fan. So this is the 5th Daniel Craig James Bond. This will be the 25th James Bond. It's our 25th episode. It's a big tie-in right here.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I guess Danny Boyle was set to direct, and then he had some issues with the script or whatever, so he walked away, and they have now replaced him with this Carrie Joy Fukunaga, who I'm not really familiar with.
I'll take 2 of that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Hold the MSG. So anyways, this guy Carrie Joy is taking over, and the only other credit I can see is he has a show on Netflix right now called Maniac with Jonah Hill, which we may or may not discuss later on in the episode.
Foreshadowing.
Woo! And that's all the news I have.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually never saw the last James Bond movie, Spectre.
What?
Yeah, it's been sitting on my shelf in the wrapper for about 2 years.
What? You are blowing my freaking mind right now.
I know. You know what? The rose has lost its bloom.
Because you started
not with James Bond, but with Daniel Craig.
What?
Every time he comes out with a new movie, he complains and he moans about how he's not going to come back and do it.
So in defiance,
and then he comes back and does it.
So in defiance, you bought the movie, but you're not going to watch it out of principle.
I will watch it
You
eventually.
need to watch it.
When the new
it is not. It is not
out.
one of the stronger ones. I got mixed reviews, but I do like Daniel Craig, and I guess I got an overlook.
Oh no, I do too. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't appreciate. And it's not just him, but it seems like every actor that's taken the role seems to grow tired of it very quickly.
I would think that
James Bond.
It would be the same old after a while.
Like Timothy Dalton?
Timothy Dalton wishes he was still James Bond.
I think he was escorted from the set. Timothy Dalton.
Wait, one more martini, please.
Yeah, like when he wasn't on the call sheet for Goldeneye, he showed up and he was told to leave. Yeah,
Yeah, you're working the craft table. Hot Fuzz.
yeah, Hot Fuzz. He's great in Hot Fuzz.
He is great in Hot Fuzz. Spoiler alert, he's the bad guy.
So our main feature this week, and slowly, and let's enunciate this, the house with a clock in its walls. I was saying incorrectly for the past few weeks, the house with the clock in its walls, but it's
Right.
The house with a clock in its walls is the official title of this movie. It is based on a novel by John Bellairs, first published in 1973, and this is actually the first in a series of 12 books.
Oh, I read 15.
The character of Lewis. Really? 15?
Yeah. Maybe he wrote 15. Maybe he wrote 15
Lewis.
altogether. Maybe not all
maybe.
15 are Lewis.
So they're just getting around to making this movie now in 2018, so many years later. But John Bellairs is no longer with us to see the release of his film.
No, and you said that the book was out of print.
It
Correct.
was out of print. When I first tried to get it from the library, because whenever there's a movie that we can see with my son who's 8, we always take the opportunity, and we wanted him to get accustomed to the story so he'd be excited about seeing the movie. So we took the book out of the library and read it over the course of about a week. When I first tried to get it, when the movie first reared its head in theaters as a trailer, it wasn't in any of my local libraries, and it wasn't on Amazon, but it was saying, to be released in September in tandem with the release of this movie, which leads me to believe that it wasn't available before the movie, probably for several years.
So they're obviously digging deep on these franchises.
Right.
Everyone's looking for the next Harry Potter.
Yeah, and this is definitely in that magic Harry Potter genre, I would say, and directed by horror meister of The Hostel, The Green Inferno, which was a cannibal movie, movies that we don't generally see.
No, I have it in my notes that this will probably be the only Eli Roth movie I'll ever watch.
Right, and I think the only other time I've actually seen an Eli Roth movie, and this doesn't even count, he was in Inglourious Bastards. He was one of the
Was he?
the American troops. He was the guy with the bat. I forget what his character's name was.
Okay.
But and also, I don't know if you remember Grindhouse, the
Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, well, those fake trailers that are at the beginning of that movie and in between the two main features, Eli Roth directed the Thanksgiving fake trailer, which is a very disturbing, realistic early 80s kind of a horror movie trailer. And so I think this is Eli Roth's forte, not only as a horror director, as like known for gore and that type of thing, but disturbing imagery as well.
So yeah, perfect guy to direct a kids movie.
Yeah, perfect. He got into horror movies through movies like Gremlins that were kind of borderline in the 80s, as which we all saw back then. So he was looking to make a movie like that, where it would be, his quote was, a gateway to stronger horror films.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, because I have it in my notes that this movie felt right at home with Goonies, Monster Squad, and Gremlins.
Really? So that was the
intent? So that's then mission accomplished.
Yeah.
It was a nice period piece.
It was. I was very thrilled. I did not know that it was a period piece. So when it opens up with the old Universal logo,
yes,
I thought that was great. And then you immediately cut. It's 1955, and everybody's I was thrilled with that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So the basic setup is that character of Lewis, who's probably 11, 12 years old. His parents die, which is the plot point of all the great Disney movies. And so he's sent to live with his Uncle Jonathan, played by Jack Black, his mother's brother. And Uncle Jonathan has a few secrets up his sleeve. He is a warlock and lives next door to a Mrs. Zimmerman, played by Cate Blanchett. And, Yay. So, and their house is full of secrets and surprises, and it's harboring one major surprise as well, which is a clock hidden somewhere in the house. And it's ticking relentlessly. Jonathan looks for it every night because it's driving him insane. He doesn't know where it is or what its purpose is. But by the end of this movie, we will all find out.
We do find out.
Yeah, if you're, not looking to be spoiled for this, then maybe you should stop listening.
Yeah, because we're going to spoil it.
Yeah.
We're going to tell you exactly where the clock is and what it's doing.
We're going to draw a map. Yeah, you're going to be able to find that clock with your eyes closed.
It's ticking down to Mike's insanity.
Yes, it is.
3 gongs to go.
So that's the basic setup of this movie. And as we were talking about, Eli Roth is the director who's known for horror movies. And this has a lot of questionable imagery for a PG movie. There's a lot of stuff going on here that I think the kids that were in my theater, at least, maybe it was a little bit too tense for them to handle.
Wow.
Nobody walked out, but there was, a lot of silence in the theater, and which is not really the case in most kids' movies.
I had the exact opposite experience, which is I went to the first matinee yesterday. And a lot of times when we see these movies early, there's a handful of people in the theater. Now, it was a nice day. And I will tell you, by the time the previews ended, I had groups of 10 people with kids all coming and piling in, and the kids love this movie. Now, there was definitely some scary moments where I had a kid jump or mom, but they all stayed in their seats. They all laughed at the jokes. I thought it was great. I like this. I really like this, and I know Mike's going to shoot me down here.
You don't think this maybe should have been a PG-13?
It could have been.
It could have been, but there was no language.
There was no
no real gratuitous violence outside of, reanimated corpse. And, there was it definitely was dark.
Right. The one scene I'm thinking of was that scene, the demon scene in the woods, the flashback with Kyle MacLachlan's character, Isaac Izzard, when he first goes over to the dark side of magic. And the demon, which is looks like a naked crouching,
like an aborigine.
Man, yes.
Yeah.
Who cuts his palm open and licks it with a giant.
Oh, yeah. The kids oohed and grossed out about that. Yeah, there was definitely some, ew. Look at Gremlins. If you want to use that as a reference point, the mom's throwing these things in blenders. And it's blood squirting everywhere. I mean, it was green blood. But it was intense. It was intense. But you know what? I think that the kids they were genuinely scared, but in a good way. This movie is not meant for you and me. It is not meant for the 3 of us. It was definitely designed for kids, probably Lewis's age. This sense of wonder. This poor kid, he's lost his parents. Who's the kid, the actor? Because I did not write down his name.
Owen Vaccaro.
He did a really good job of carrying this movie. I mean, because Jack Black is over the top. I mean, Jack Black is just Jack Black. And he did tone it down, but he always kind of plays the same character to a large extent.
I can give you the right books, teach you the right spells, but that last 1%, that's up to you.
And for this kid to hold his own against him, I thought was pretty impressive. But he just bursts out crying numerous times throughout this movie. And I didn't buy the crying. I thought it was a little forced. But the rapport between Jack Black and Cate Blanchett was over the moon for me. I loved the interaction between the two of them, the constant bickering back and forth. And the kid even makes a joke, or he insinuates that maybe they have more of a relationship than just being neighbors. And Mrs. Zimmerman shoots him right down. There's no kissy.
What's funny in the book is that Mrs. Zimmerman is a much older character. She's like a spinster in the book. So there's no question that they're not in a relationship, because there's a big age difference between Jonathan.
Well, if you're a warlock, or if you're a witch, can you control your age? Like maybe you got the impression that maybe they could be hundreds of years old and just. Well, no, I take that back, because there's a whole backstory with him and Lewis's mom. Uncle Jonathan left the family. So, and
I have to say that this is the first time in a while that I've seen Cate Blanchett in a movie and I've not been annoyed by her character.
You didn't like Hella?
Oh, no, I think that's an aside. I think I can't count that. But Cate Blanchett, in recent years, she's always playing somebody rich and entitled. So, and knows it.
She plays this.
Well, she is rich and entitled.
There you go. She's casting to.
She's maybe typecast in that role.
I did want that kid's bedroom, though. I will say the set design of this house and the props were over the top. It was just so chock full of eye candy, and it was just such a nicely designed set.
It was very Beauty and the Beast-esque, because this wasn't in the book, the living items in the house. So this kind of came, I think, into the script on its own. So the living armchair and like the
Cherry. Yeah. I guess he escaped from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah, he did, and he got reupholstered.
The pooping topiary griffin. It was a running joke. The kids got a laugh every time.
Apparently, this topiary has explosive diarrhea. It's not just poop.
But it's like mulch. It's not like it's sanitized poop. Bad kitty.
Bad kitty.
But you're right. This movie is very dark at times. it doesn't take the kid long to realize that there's something going on here. And Uncle Jonathan reveals that he's a warlock. And the kid he's a nerd to the nth degree. Like, he just carries around a dictionary. He loves words. So he immediately wants to learn magic. And so they just give him all this pile of books, and, Doctor Strange, within weeks, days, whatever, he's suddenly able to cast spells.
And raise the dead. No,
and raise the dead.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so let's bring up that, which is this whole backstory of Eddie Izzard. No.
Eddie Izzard. You were going to say Izzard, yeah.
Isaac Izzy.
Yeah, no, I was surprised when you saw that hand reach out of the crypt that it didn't have nail polish on the finger. Expecting Eddie Izzard to come out of the grave.
So there's a subplot of Lewis befriending this kid Tarby in school, and Tarby's like obviously on the football team. He has a broken hand, so he can't play football, and he becomes friends with Lewis, and this is like his only friend. Kid's been moved, his parents are dead, and so he's doing whatever he can to retain this kid as a friend. But the storyline really kind of went, like, to me, Tarby was just a plot device to get Lewis to open the book.
Yeah, because he wanted to impress him with some some really knockout magic. Which,
right. Yeah. Listen, all he had to do is, at some point they were molding electricity. That enough would have impressed me. You didn't need to raise the dead. Make a chair float or something. But yeah, Tarby to me was just a plot device. And Uncle Jonathan, that's his one rule. No rules in this house. You can go to bed whenever you want. You can eat whatever you want. You don't have to take a bath. The only thing I'm going to tell you is don't open that cabinet. So what's the kid do? He opens the cabinet.
Yeah.
Well, why was the key in the drawer in the cabinet?
Right? That's like most parents who have the liquor cabinet locked up, but the key's like right next to it.
It was a test.
It's a test. Well, he failed miserably.
He did.
The high school reminded me. I wanted to look this up. It looked exactly like the school from Back to the Future, which also took place in 1955.
Ooh, could it be a little bit of cross-pollination here?
I don't know. I had to look it up. I don't know where they filmed this. And then Lewis was having visions of his mother coming to him, and he just kind of bought into it that mom was dead, but she kept coming back and talking to him and telling him in his sleep he needs to find the key and open the book.
Yep.
And then you find out. All right, so we'll keep going.
I wanted to point out, if you guys caught this, but there's some literary references in here going on. First of all, the story itself has a lot of similarities to the Telltale Heart. It's the clock that's ticking instead of the heart beating, but it's the same type of conceit where it's driving Uncle Jonathan crazy and he's trying to find the clock. And also, right before the dead raising scene, there was a shot of a monkey's paw, if you noticed that.
Ah, monkey's paw. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, again, that plays into all the props and all that stuff they had laying around on set.
And the whole involvement, as you're saying, Jeff, of Tarby, and how that really doesn't go anywhere. For me, that just kind of underscored, you can't trust the popular kids. You really can't.
Right.
They'll turn on you any chance they get.
That's right. And the little girl told him as such.
Yeah. Just stick with the nerds. Elected. You're better. The nerds are more tried and true.
I was pretty grounded until we get to the pumpkin scene. Otherwise, there's really, to me, not a lot of CG stuff going on.
Yeah, we had the animatronics come to life scene.
Yeah, those all had to be practical. So yeah, again, that to me feeds into that kind of 80s look and feel, that it's all practical stuff going on. The pumpkins, again, the kids, even though we saw it in the commercial 1,000 times where the pumpkin pukes on Jack Black, the kids lost it in my theater. They knew it was coming, yet they still thought it was funny.
Also, the same thing with the basketball trick at the end.
Yes, which again, it's like, right, come on, that's the very end of the movie. Why show that in the trailer?
Yeah, I know.
It drives me nuts.
Still got to laugh, though, with the kids.
Yeah, because it's funny. Because, once again, like you said, the popular kids get it all in the face.
Mm-hmm. That's what you get.
I thought the Ovaltine code breaker thing was a little too on the nose with the Christmas Story, where he had to break the code.
Yeah, maybe so.
Break Ovaltine, come on. But the candy store scene was fun when they actually went into the candy store to get the Ovaltine, and then he's using the little code breaker, and every time Jack Black smashes his fist down, the little fat kid next to him, his ice cream is almost gone. All of a sudden it fills up to 20 scoops, and he's like, oh, and then he pumps his fist again and it disappears. He's like, oh. Yeah. That to me, I thought was funny. It's like, toy with a fat kid. I did feel that the third act really fell apart quickly, though.
Yeah, I think it just went on too long in the third act. It was they got kicked out of the house and they get back in, and so I think
I thought that whole thing, once Izzy comes back and you find out what their nefarious plan is, which is the clock is going to run out and time is going to go backwards, and there's going to be no humans, right?
Right. Yeah. The clock will run backwards backwards till everybody ages in reverse until they're no longer there.
Except for Izzy and his wife, Selena, who is in hiding as the old lady across the street the whole time.
Right. And will this bring Isaac Izzard back to life?
No, because he still looked like he just crawled out. That was great makeup, by the way.
It was, yeah.
It was phenomenal makeup. So they'll be the only two humans on Earth with what, dinosaurs? Like, what was the whole point?
I don't know.
Really, where are we going with this?
In the book, it was very ambiguous what the clock would do. It would just end the world. There was no turning back time plot line going on. That the clock was a doomsday clock and that existence would end. And it was Selena was brought back from the dead in the book. Yep. And Isaac Izzard had nothing to do with the end game of what happened in the book. But it was just too big of an opportunity, I think, to leave that character lying for the movie. And I kind of agree with that. I think that it's better.
Right. But it's like the minute they get back, to me, it was all resolved way too quickly. The evil guy was dispatched. And so the one story, another plot device, which is Lewis has this magic 8-ball that he's constantly shaking and contacting his parents, asking questions, because obviously he misses his parents. And he uses this and basically he loses it and he throws it into the mechanisms of the clock and it stops it. The little die that's inside clogs up the clock and thus stopping.
And this, yes. So, help from beyond the grave, it seems.
There you go.
So we got to tell him where the clock is. We already promised that we would. So.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. It is in the house, but it's not in the walls.
It's not in the walls. It's more under the house.
Right. So the title is a little misleading.
Yes. So it's.
I guess if they said under the
right.
house, it'd be a little
clock,
too
yeah. It's actually there's a crawl space door in the furnace. So you have to turn off the furnace to get to it, and there was a long passageway, kind of like the bunker in Lost.
Where you have to fight Freddy Krueger, and
yes,
but as they're fighting, as they're making their way or whatever, like everything's crumbling around them, and people outside are being zapped and they're de-aging, and so of course Uncle Jonathan gets zapped and immediately becomes a naked baby with a giant Jack Black head. And it was just like...
Which did not make any sense. Because,
because everyone else was just going back to like a 6-7-year-old.
Yeah.
He immediately becomes an infant with a giant head.
With a goatee.
Right, the whole thing. And, of course, there's a point where he pees. Lewis is picking him up. He's cradling him. Now, this is, again, it's got to be a real-world doll that this kid is running around with, holding this creepy thing. And it pees, and every kid in my theater lost their shit. They thought it was the funniest thing ever.
And of course, they had to foreshadow that because Jack Black mentions, I really have to pee as they're going downstairs to find the clock. Yeah.
So, but best comic duo to Cher and Topiary Griffin. I thought that they were phenomenal. They actually got credit at the end. Do you know that? Did you?
They did?
The credits? Yeah, actually,
no.
Topiary Griffin Tamer was credited to Cher, and then Cher's hair and makeup was attributed to Topiary Griffin. So that was kind of funny. So, Mike, you've been very quiet.
Yes.
For me, it was a forgettable movie. Almost just on leaving it. Now, the 11-year-old me would have loved this movie, but the current me, not so much.
Yeah. I think watching it with a bunch of kids in my theater made it a better experience for me because I was able to kind of you knew what you were getting into, I guess. It was much better than I probably would have given it credit for. I did enjoy it.
I kind of walked away satisfied. I wasn't surprised by it or anything. I was just like, okay, that was what I was expecting. So
now you said you took Harrison?
Yes, I did.
And what was his?
He liked it. At one point he did say, and I think it might have been right around the demon scene where he whispers, he goes, I think this is a little too scary for me. And
there you go. And then like that guy
we were just like, deal with it.
There you go. You're like that guy in my Spider-Man. Dad, this is scary. Shut up and watch it. Shut up, be a man.
I want to see how it ends.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no way I'm walking out of this. Put your head between your legs. Eat some popcorn.
So an interesting thing about this movie that in some IMAX theaters around the world where it's playing as a double feature with the Michael Jackson Thriller video in 3D.
Really? That's all right. That's really channeling the 80s.
It's a Michael Jackson 3D video.
I guess it's
must have converted
a retrofitted version of the classic Thriller video in 3D in IMAX.
I will say the surround sound was phenomenal in my theater.
Mine too.
There was some crazy background where I actually turned my head thinking that someone behind me was talking.
Yeah, or knocked something over, I think, at
Right,
one
correct.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was really the first time in a long time that I've been to a movie where I felt that completely being engrossed in the film.
Rotten Tomatoes, I think, is pretty much towards Mike's point of view. It's only got
Oh, no.
67% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
See, these reviewers need to channel their inner child. I actually hope that this sparks a revival of all this guy's his novels.
Yeah, at least I think that they're back in print now, or you're able to get them now. So maybe there will. And this movie, it looks like it's on track to at least make its budget back. It cost $42 million to make. The opening weekend is projected to be $25 million. So generally, I think if you look at opening weekend, you can kind of double that figure to see what it's going to get. So I would think they would make more than 50.
I'm impressed that they made it for 40.
Yeah.
Well, it's not very crowded out there right now, movie-wise.
No, that is true. Especially kid movies. You really don't have a lot going on. Yeah, I like that it didn't pander to the kids. I like the fact that it was a little intense. I don't know if either one of you have ever saw Monster House, which came out a couple years ago. It was a CG movie.
Animated, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah, and that's really kind of an intense movie. Sans any parental, like it's just kids on their own dealing with this. Again, it's a possessed house, and you find out that it was the wife gets encased in concrete basically and becomes the embodiment of this house.
Coraline is also another one.
Coraline, my son will not watch that movie. It scared him. Yeah. So movies like that, to me, I mean, this is really gothic-y, but it doesn't pander to these kids, and I thought.
Yeah. So how many popcorn buckets? How many popcorns?
Mike?
Oh boy! Well, if I could remember it, because I was immediately forgetting about it. Thinking too harsh on this, I'm going to say 2.5.
So our talking about it didn't make you be like, well, maybe I'm a little rough on this. Maybe.
I mean, I did like the set design. I did like the scenery of it. I did like that it was a period piece. I enjoyed sort of the first 2 acts of the movie. So
I'll agree with all of that.
I'm sticking with 2.5.
Okay, there you go. I got to go at least 3.5.
3.5. I'll go 3.25.
Okay. All right. Highly recommended. If you have any kids probably under the age of now, my son's 16. He probably would have no interest in this. It's a little below him, but I would say 12-ish, I think. And there was kids younger in the theater, but probably around that age. I think there's some potty humor going on, and it's just dark and intense enough that I think that kids would love this.
I mean, do you think that this movie will be like what Goonies is to us?
No.
I don't think it'll be as revered as.
Right.
I think that time has passed, to tell you the truth.
It is. I think kids are just inundated with way too much now. It's a different world. Goonies was an experience going to the theater. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
I think I hear that popcorn popping. Let's go get some.
Wouldn't some hot buttered popcorn hit the spot right now? Extra fluffy, extra big kernels of it popped to perfection. Then drenched with the golden goodness of pure sweet creamery butter. Can't you just taste it? We heat the container extra high, but you better buy 2 more for the rest of the family. Piping hot, golden buttered popcorn at the refreshment center right now.
All right, we're back. We got the popcorn. Jeff doesn't like it, so that's more for Mike and I. So
there you go. Unless you get the Orville Redenbacher extra buttery.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, like half
in our
of
budget.
It's not healthy. Come on, we got to
Listen. Yeah. Movie popcorn is not healthy for you.
No, it's not.
$12 a bucket.
No.
And I always ask for extra butter. And if you get the girl right, they do it in layers. Put a little bit in, put some butter on. You put a little bit more popcorn in.
Are you that guy that
I am that guy.
No, don't do that. Don't do
it. Listen.
Yeah.
I have Carla behind the counter who knows me by name and knows exactly how I like my popcorn.
Well, Carla, this show is dedicated to you. The long-suffering Carla.
She's coming. She's like, here comes that.
What does this guy have, a podcast or something? He comes in here every week. All right, so our classic this week, The Prestige.
The Prestige.
I feel like I have to, be a showman as I'm.
You must do like hand flares.
Jazz hands. The
Jazz
Prestige.
Hands. There you go. The Prestige.
So this was a 2006 movie. 12 years old now, this movie. I remember seeing it in the theater. I remember. And I enjoyed it then. I enjoyed it now. As we mentioned before, it was paired at the time with The Illusionist, another magician movie, I think, starring Edward Norton.
Ed Norton.
Which has kind of fallen into obscurity. I didn't remember it until I was watching The Prestige again, actually. I'm like, wasn't there another movie that came out? The Illusionist. Yeah. Wasn't that good?
Yeah. There's always one that kind of like, all these double, I was mentioning at the top of the show, the volcano Dante's Peak.
Yeah, how does that work? Because they come out at the same time. They probably don't know about each other.
Somebody's got to leak. Somebody's got to be like, hey, Paramount's got a volcano movie in development. Oh, we got to jump on that. I don't know. Let's get Pierce Brosnan. He's not doing anything. Well, Tommy Lee Jones.
So yeah, The Illusionist. I don't even remember the plot line of that one, just because I think The Prestige in the public consciousness has totally eclipsed it. But we've got two warring magicians in this movie, played by Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. And Christian Bale coming off Batman Begins.
Yeah, well, we got a little
Christopher Nolan. Yeah,
Christopher Nolan. Yeah, so you got that whole Batman connection, but you also have Wolverine and Black Widow,
and you've got Arthur as well. Michael Caine.
Alfred.
Arthur. What did I say?
Arthur.
Dudley Moore.
You're talking about
Dudley Moore hobbling in here. Yeah. You're telling me it might be you.
So yes, Christopher Nolan coming off Batman.
Michael Caine as Cutter, as he's kind of like confidant, or the what would you call his character?
I don't really know. He wasn't like their manager. He was I guess confidant would be.
Maybe he's like an ex-magician who's shown him the ropes, but he kind of sets off the exposition in this movie right away.
He is the narrator. Well, he's not the narrator, because you definitely got like three. So this Christopher Nolan movie, you can't take any of his movies at face value. Well, Memento is one of my all-time favorite movies. And these are movies you can't just casually pay attention to. I mean, the characters tell you point blank, are you watching closely? And that's the way you have to watch this movie the entire way through. Right. There are so many jumps and flashbacks and flash forwards. Like, you don't know what the hell is going on at first, because it's all over the place. And it's like, as the movie progresses, everything starts, so just like a magic trick, it all kinds of pulls together. But yeah, you're right. What's his name? Michael Caine. Right off the bat, he tells you exactly, there's three parts to a magic trick.
Because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back. That's why every magic trick has a third act, the hardest part, the part we call the prestige.
The prestige being the reveal, the punchline of the joke. So we have Robert Angier, who is Hugh Jackman, who's an American magician.
Got two dueling magicians, as you say, but one of them is immediately accused of killing the other one. He's on trial. He's in his cell reading the guy's diary, but then you cut to the other character who is dead, but he's not dead, reading the other guy's diary. So there's this dual thing going on, and it's a one-upmanship that just, it's crazy. This takes place in what,
1890?
1890, probably in that. Yeah. So it's a period piece, much older than the house with a clock in its walls. Yeah. You open up with a sea of hats of these hats, like littered on the ground. And immediately you're just like, what the hell? What's going on? Did people like just shoot Abe Lincoln numerous times? What's going on here? So, but Robert Angier and Alfred Borden.
Yeah, so there's a long storied history between these two. The earliest incarnation of these two, they're both working for the same magician, kind of as plants in this guy's audience.
Two volunteers from the audience, and they're masters of disguises. They've always got these fake beards or mutton chops or a hat on, so they always look differently, because I'm sure there was probably no other entertainment back then. So I think that maybe if I saw a magic trick, I'd go again the next day.
Yeah.
Like, I got to go again. Wait a minute. That's the same guy going up there on stage. There's something going on.
So this magician that they're working for, he's got a beautiful young assistant, and it happens to be Angier's, Hugh Jackman's wife. And Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, they're the plants, as we just discussed, in the audience. They come up and they tie the wrists and ankles of the beautiful young assistant. And it's Christian Bale that does the tying. And this is very important. Yeah. So what they do is, after they've tied her hands and wrists, they lower her into a fully encased tank of water. They put a curtain around it, and then she has to escape it within a minute.
Right. Well, yeah, because Cutter's on the sidelines with a stopwatch. The minute she drops in there and they drop the curtain, he hits that stopwatch for 1 minute and immediately grabs the axe. That if he's going to have to hack through this cage to get her out, then so be it.
It opens up with Christian Bale. They're arguing after a performance, after a successful performance, about what kind of knot he should be tying. And for some reason, he's gung-ho for this more complicated knot that will hold her better when she's being hoisted up in the air and being placed into the tank. But Hugh Jackman is against it because he thinks she won't be able to get out of it. And she says, of course, I'll be able to get out of it. The next night comes, he ties the knot, she goes in, and she can't get out of the knot that he's tied. And then she dies. Michael Caine is not able to get to her in time. And so that sets off.
But obviously, nobody knew what CPR was back then.
No,
she like choked. He breaks the glass
and
then
just looking at her,
looking at her. Somebody try to revive her.
Yeah,
nothing. No,
I think she could easily be saved if this was
right. Turn her head, she'll spit out the water and be good. I've seen it on Baywatch 100 times.
So that's what sets off the rivalry between these two. Is that Hugh Jackman blames Borden for killing his wife.
Yeah.
And from that point on, they both become magicians in their own right, and they're trying to one-up each other every chance that they get.
The professor and the great Danton?
The great Danton.
Right? Yeah, they each take a name now. I will say that guy Milton, he was the magician that they were helping. Like his name is Ricky Jay. He's a real world sleight of hand artist, and he actually trained both of those guys really. Crap.
But he's an actor as well. I've seen that guy before.
But I guess he's a professional sleight of hand artist. So he was able to kind of take these guys and teach them a lot of this, this stuff that they do with the balls and the coins disappearing and the cards.
So the next facet of the movie is fast forwarding, and Christian Bale, the Borden character, has a trick called the transporting man, which is just driving Angiers crazy because he doesn't know how Bale does it.
And again, he shows up every night. He shows up every night watching the show, trying to figure out how he does it.
So what it is the Borden character has two doors at opposite sides of the stage, just doors. He enters one on one side of the stage and comes out the other.
Immediately.
And Michael Caine is insistent that he's using a double, that he cannot do it any other way than use a double.
Either wait for him to retire and buy the secret, or you listen to how I would do it. And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good double.
And they say that there's a double of you out there somewhere. Everyone has a duplicate person that looks exactly like you. I've been told before, which I feel bad for the other person. But yeah, they're able to easily find some drunkard who you shave his beard off and suddenly he looks just like Hugh Jackman.
It's because it was Hugh Jackman.
It was Hugh Jackman. So he does the new transporting man. So he does basically does the same trick with a doppelganger, but this guy doesn't play by the rules because he's drunk and he can barely stand up.
But they're the same height, which is, they did make an effort to put in fake teeth for the other Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And
he kind of held his chin in a little bit. So he's got a little less of a chin or whatever, but on stage, and they act exactly. He's able to channel Angier, even his voice mannerisms, you can match it exactly. But I guess people in the audience, they want to believe. That was one of the overriding arcs of the story, which is, you want to give people what they want to be mystified.
So Hugh Jackman's character is now doing a pretty good copy of Borden's magic trick of the transporting man. So the way that he does it, he's got a trap door below the stage, which the real Hugh Jackman, the real Angier, falls through. And then the fake Angier comes through the other door.
Right.
And somehow Borden's character gets to the fake Angier one night in a bar, just planting the idea in his head, I knew somebody else that did this trick, and the double, you could have complete control over the magician. Like, it's all dependent on you, which is true, which is completely true.
Right.
His trick is dependent on the double. And so Borden manages to really Shanghai the trick one night, takes the mat from below the stage, so Hugh Jackman just falls onto the floor and breaks his leg. The reveal, the prestige of the trick this night is the fake Angier hanging from the rafters with a sign that's advertising the show across.
Right, yeah. And so Borden comes out and he's looking perplexed. And of course, the people are laughing. And then, right, he's like, oh, this guy's a hack. Come see my show next door. It was genius. It was brilliant that he commandeered and basically sabotaged the entire thing.
So Angier would never, in today's world with, social media and everything, Angier would never be able to do magic again. He would be done after that.
Done, yeah.
Yeah, but no, he's given a second chance here. So then he becomes obsessed again, understandably so, with one-upping Borden for doing this to him. So this leads him to Nikolai Tesla, who's doing experiments in Colorado.
Doesn't he also send his assistant, Olivia, who's played by Scarlett Johansson, to go and be assistant with Borden so she could steal his secrets?
Yes, yeah.
Right? That's how he gets he gets the diary, but then he realizes he can't decipher the diary because the diary is written in some code. And he needs the keyword in order to unscramble what all of his notes are. So the one thing we haven't talked about, which is Borden has this assistant, this schlumpy Artie Johnson looking guy who is always kind of skulking around in the background. You don't really know what's going on with him. Meanwhile, Borden is now married and he has a daughter. And so this guy is like taking care of the daughter or whatever. And Angier captures him and buries him in the graveyard and then calls Borden. He says, I got your buddy, and the only way you're going to find out where he is to give me the key code to the diary, right? And that's when he writes down the word Tesla.
That's when yes.
Right. Now, if only he had the Ovaltine code, he could have easily figured it out. But obviously, Ovaltine was not invented.
Yeah, no, it was not. It was not.
So that's how he gets the diary. That's how he gets the Tesla.
So but then we later find that the diary, brilliantly, is a MacGuffin. And the Tesla is a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
The diary meant nothing.
Because you find out, right, as he's reading it, he purposely was writing notes in there to him as I'm laying in my, it's so he goes to the United States. He goes to Colorado. And this guy must have like a lot of money because he now travels to Colorado. He's staying in a hotel. They're all waiting for him. You're our only guest. You're our first guest of the season. I'm staying here indefinitely until I get to meet Tesla,
who's doing experiments in the woods.
Right. And meanwhile, his assistant is Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis. So this must have been his first official human acting role. I always thought it was King Kong.
No, this was
way before, right?
And the reason that Borden even has Tesla as the keyword is because he just happened to see like a presentation that Tesla did in London at one point, and I think it stuck with him. So I think that he could use it. Was as good as MacGuffin as any to use with Tesla. Send him on a wild goose chase.
A wild goose chase is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And you have this little backstory too with Tesla versus Edison. Thomas Edison's people show up in the hotel at some point.
Right.
So that kind of like plays into the rivalry between the two magicians. You also have these two inventors that are, and Tesla is played by
David Bowie.
David Bowie, who originally said no. He wanted nothing to do with it. He thought his star power would be a little too much. And I guess Nolan had to go and sit him down and basically explain that he's integral to the story. And
go home. Forget this thing. I can recognize an obsession. No good will come of it.
Well, hasn't good come of your obsessions?
At first, but I followed them too long. I am their slave. And one day they will choose to destroy me.
Did you recognize him as Bowie, though, in the movie?
I knew immediately who it was.
Yeah, and his entrance, just when he walks through the lightning,
and the lightning bolts.
It was almost really supernatural. It's like he's walking back from the grave in this film. He suits the role almost perfectly, just because he's just this really untouchable, ethereal figure that blows in and out of the movie.
Yeah, he doesn't look like Tesla in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. I think he added a little bit of gravitas.
Yeah, but the whole thing about showmanship and everything else really kind of feeds into what Bowie's career was. So I think he fits perfectly in this movie.
Yeah. So Angier goes to Tesla to create. He thinks that Tesla had created something for Borden, and so he wants him to recreate it for him. Is that the premise?
Yeah, he thinks that the transporting man was created by Tesla for Borden.
Right.
And Tesla does not refute this at all. I don't even know if Angier brings it up that he did something for Borden, but he just wants a machine for the purposes of his show from Tesla. So Tesla is working on something Not exactly what Angier had in mind, but something phenomenal nonetheless. This is where we find out where all those top hats came from.
Yes. Yeah. He's bankrupt. Tesla's bankrupt. And that he's being, pushed out. And this is literally his last project that he's ever going to work on. But yeah, he has this device that he shows off. He puts the hat down, it zaps it, and nothing happens.
And then, and Angier flips out, says, "You're wasting my money."
Yep.
And he storms off in a huff. And then he sees piles of hats.
Oh, no, they do the cat. They do the cat.
They do the cat, yeah. And
yeah, again, this is all told in multiple flashbacks, flash forwards. So you actually see this like toward the beginning of the movie, but it doesn't make any sense until so he goes back. And this time they're like, listen, we don't know what's going on. We got to up the ante. So then he puts the cat down, and they zap the cat, and the cat runs off and nothing. As he's leaving in disgust, he hears the cat going nuts. He walks over into the field, and sure enough, there's the cat, plus about 200 hats. So next thing you know, they're all out there, and they're like, well, I thought you said it didn't work. He said, well, an exact science is not an exact science.
And he's not surprised by it whatsoever. He's like, oh, yeah, I thought this would happen, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Let me tell my boss that. Well, And so he says, don't forget your hat, sir, as he's leaving. He goes, which one's mine? And they're like, they're all yours.
So here comes the big reveal at the towards the end of this movie.
Prestige.
Angier brings this machine back to duplicate the transporting man, and he does it in a way that is just so off the wall. He goes into the machine every night, makes a duplicate of himself just to do the transporting man trick, and then ends up killing the duplicate every night. So you're questioning, okay, is the person he's killing, where is the original Angier?
Well, he always said
he's long dead. Are these clones each time taking his place? Each time
I don't know because he said even from the beginning when he had the doppelganger, he was trying to figure out a way that it was him who comes out the other side and because it's not about the person that goes in the box, it's about the person that comes out of the box. Kind of a thing. Like he wants the applause. He was all about the applause. He was a showman right to the end. So when he's down in the hole and then the fake guy comes out the other side, he's the one who's getting all the applause. He's the one who's getting all the accolades. So Angier was trying to figure out a way to be able to swap that. So the same thing would have to hold true if every night he was walking into the light and disappearing, that would have to have been the duplicate. And he falls into the hole and he falls into the tank, which immediately locks up, and then Angier, the true Angier, shows up off stage up on the rafters to applause, is my take.
But wouldn't you think that the one that shows up in the rafters is the duplicate?
Right.
I don't know. Because the guy on the stage is doing all the work.
that is getting zapped just stays there.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Right. You have to kill yourself every night.
He falls into the trapdoor and then they drown him.
Because he does say there is one line in there saying he wonders whether he's going to end up in the tank or in the balcony, like each time before the trick happens. So it's like probably.
Oh, I guess maybe I missed that line.
I'm wondering if
it's a little ambiguous.
Yeah.
Because
does he have the same conscience? Is he,
Well, the first time he did it and he duplicated himself when he was still in Tesla's. Oh no, when he was in the when he first brought it back. So Tesla's Edison's people burned down Tesla's facilities, but he magically left the box in the hotel. Right. And that's how he get it back. And then once he plugged it in, he did all the work. Andy Serkis's character had left him explicit instructions on how to put it together. And the first time he duplicates himself, the duplicate's like, whoa, wait. And he just shoots him point blank. Right. So, yeah, you would think that it's an exact duplicate. And he's still wearing all the same clothes. I would think he would have the exact same. He for all intents, he probably thinks he is the true Angier. So, yeah, that's a little ambiguous, but Borden is on death row because he's being accused of killing Angier.
Yes, this movie is so hard to talk about.
Because at the very beginning of the movie,
I just watched it last night. And
you see,
where are we now?
Angier fall into the glass water tank
because Borden is going nuts because he doesn't know how Angier is doing this trick.
Right, so he sneaks into the theater and he sneaks backstage. And he sees him falling into the tank, oblivious to the fact that it's a duplicate. And he tries to break him out. And, of course, they see him and they think that he set him up. And Cutter was going with this. Cutter was truly believing that that Borden had put that tank underneath there. Cutter was oblivious to what Angier was doing. That this
Cutter,
was how he was
at
pulling
the time, yes. But then once Cutter realizes he had time to save Borden's life before he got hung. You know, he could have easily stood up and said, you know, Angier is alive. You know, that,
right.
But he didn't.
Right. And we find out that Angier is not really, he's some billionaire, Lord Coldwall, who lives on this vast estate. And that's how he has all this money. And all he wanted to do was be a better magician than Borden. And it didn't make any sense, because if he's this Lord Coldwall, like, wouldn't you be kind of well known? Like, nobody recognized him.
Right.
Like,
or was this the persona he adopted after he left magic?
But where would he get all that money? He had a giant estate.
From all of his performances.
He had 100 performances.
He was always a lord. That's how I took it.
That's the way I took it too. That he was always this lord who just lowered himself to be this magician.
I like to think of it the other way around. He was the magician that like became the identity of this lord after he amassed all this money from doing these shows.
Well, they definitely, you know, there was some fast and loose stuff with identities, and then you find out that Borden's buddy Fallon, Fallon was his duplicate brother,
also known as a twin.
When you watch it, Mike, now you have some insider experience with this. You have a twin. You have a twin. Now, you know.
Do you ever pull off magic shows? Did you ever go on a date?
How do you know this is me?
Are you? I know. Are you Mike?
I don't know if it's you.
You know, when I can't make it, my brother comes.
I like that.
Whenever they have twins in a movie, it's always duplicitousness. It's always sneakiness. You know, the movie's perception of twins. You must take offense to this.
Yeah, you remember that Jeremy Iron movie with the twins?
Yeah. Don't belittle us. You know,
The Shining. Remember The Shining? The two little girls.
Was that you?
I think Twins was the only pro-twins movie I've ever seen. My name is Julius. I'm your twin brother.
Hey, we look just alike.
Yeah. So yes, so Lord Caldwell takes Borden's daughter as his own, and then we find out, as we were saying, that Fallon is the twin of Borden, and that's how he did it. So Michael Caine was right.
Yeah,
he used a double. Right. Yeah.
And they went to the extent where they actually, because Borden had lost 2 fingers in a botched bullet catching incident. That was Angier.
Yes, and they
actually chopped off his brother's fingers so that just to sell the illusion that much more. Found out that the twin Borden brothers, one was devoted to his wife Sarah and the other one to Olivia, but they were constantly switching places.
Right.
And so you never know, and you could tell like and going back now.
If you watch it, with the second time you watch it, you can They give you.
And Sarah, before she hanged herself, actually says to him, "I know what you are." So there's a slight change in his personality, and so you could tell. Right. There was actually a telltale in the beginning of the movie when he's first starting out, and they're doing the disappearing bird cage trick, and really all they're doing is compressing the cage and killing the bird. And the little boy, like the boy's like, he killed the bird. He killed.
What happened to his brother?
He said that's the entire point of the movie right there.
Yes, and he gave it a little telltale signs where the wife, what was her name again?
Sarah.
She tells him, sometimes I think you love me, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, and he goes, not today. Do you love me today? He goes, not today.
Yeah.
So that immediately told her who he was, which one he was.
And the scene with Fallon where he's berating Fallon, Borden is berating Fallon, telling him, why can't you figure out his trick?
He's a no-talent magician, and they're calling him the bloody best in England. Why? 50 yards in a second. In a second! What is going on under that stage? Huh? Why can't you outthink him?
When he's actually yelling at his brother, who's the real magician with the Fallon makeup, probably.
Yeah.
Were they both magicians, or was only one a magician?
I would think they would both have to be, because they were constantly switching places.
And I was really looking at Fallon every time they showed him to see if there was any tell that was Christian Bale, and there really wasn't.
No, well, because they put like the jowl things like the cotton in his cheeks. Yeah. But he looked like Artie Johnson. You remember from Laughing?
He did.
Oh dear! And he just falls over.
Just because I was asking myself, should I have known this the first time I watched this movie? Was I really so dense that I did not know that was Christian Bale?
Well, I hate to say it, but that's a lot of these Nolan movies. It's kind of like Inception. It's kind of like once you see the end, Like, you immediately want to go back and rewatch it again. You're like, all right, hold on. Does this actually hold together if I rewatch it? And I think it did. I mean, even knowing what the Prestige is, now at the very end, you had Michael Caine once again reiterate what the pledge, the turn, do we need to be spoon-fed that? I mean, I don't think we're stupid, but that just seemed a little...
Just an excuse to have Michael Caine speaking, I think.
Maybe.
His tones are just so soothing that, again, speaking again about if you want somebody as your GPS voice, I think Michael Caine would be right up
he'd
there.
fall asleep. So we were led to believe that it was Fallon who actually was hanged.
The brother.
Right.
So Sarah's husband, the father of the girl,
was
the
able
one
to
that lives at the end. Okay.
Yeah, that was my take. But what was his last words? I rewound this thing 3 times and I couldn't figure out what his last words were.
Before he was hung?
Yeah, as he's standing there with the noose around his neck.
I didn't catch that either.
Yeah, I couldn't hear it.
Damn it. So I didn't know what it was. But you know something really cool? Which is if you take Robert Angiers and Alfred Borden, you take those 4 names together, it is ABRA. Abra, as in abracadabra. I thought that was... I can't take credit for that. I read that somewhere.
Did you know Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is LSD?
Lucy I did. Do you remember there was this quick little scene where they were watching the Asian magician and they were trying to figure out his tricks? He was like pulling forth bird cages and
yes,
fish
and
bowls.
The old man, yes.
Yeah, and as he's walking out of the theater, the guy's like limping. He's like, that's the trick. That's the whole ploy of what he's doing. So that's based on a real world magician. It was this American English magician, and he pretended to be an Asian because he thought people would buy into it more. This was like in 1918. He performed as this Chung Lee Soo for 19 years on stage as this character. And he never broke character until he got accidentally shot and a bullet gone wrong. And his last words were, "I've been shot," in English. But so that was a real call out to a true magician that pretended that he was just.
But did that performance spark the whole Fallon Borden thing? You know, the twin brother existed before he saw that old magician.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where that old magician, where that fell in the storyline, because you saw Angier trying to carry the fishbowl between his knees to get it up onto the table as he's lifting up the curtain or whatever.
We never did learn how that trick was done, right?
No, I mean, we never.
He just had very strong legs.
There you go. Yep. He must do his Kegels.
Oh. I want to get back to Michael Caine for a second.
Okay.
Have either of you guys ever seen The Trip with Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon, 2 English comedians? Steve Coogan is in a lot of movies.
I know.
Yes, I think I have. They sort of like travel in the north of England.
Yes, and they have a job from a food magazine has given them an assignment to go and eat at different restaurants. And they're just riffing on each other throughout this movie. And one of the things they do is they trade Michael Caine impersonations.
I can't go fast because Michael Caine talks very, very slowly.
Right, this is how Michael Caine speaks. Michael Caine speaks to his nose like that.
When it gets loudly, it gets very loud indeed. It gets very specific. It's not quite nasal enough the way you're doing it, all right? You're not doing it the way he speaks.
Well, he gets very emotional indeed. She was only 16 years old.
She was only 16. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
That's Michael Caine.
And if anybody out there has never seen The Trip, it is one of the funniest scenes in a movie I have ever seen. It's called The Trip, and it's sequel, The Trip to Italy. So I just wanted to drop that for everybody.
They made a sequel?
They did. They made a sequel.
The Trip and The Trip to Italy.
Yes. So there we go. So how many popcorn buckets would we give The Prestige?
I'd go 4. I mean, you really had to pay attention to the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I would go 4 as well.
I'm going to as well. It's very well put together. It's one of those movies. Again, we've all seen it, but watching it again, you're still impressed with the end. It's not like The Sixth Sense where you're like, oh, he's dead. He's dead. No way. No, spoiler alert. Sorry. It holds together. It definitely holds up. The performances are phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, Christian Bale doing his best Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins.
His Cockney voice was a little all over the place, but again, maybe you just like maybe he was the brother and the brother.
But no, he was. Yeah, everybody was good. Right? I think it's probably the best non-Wolverine Hugh Jackman role I've seen.
Oh,
I'd like to say that maybe.
Interesting. I don't know. I like Real Steel.
Oh, why didn't they just call that not Rock'em Sock'em Robots?
Listen, you got Evangeline Lilly in there. That is such a great movie. I like it. Yeah, I'm going 4. I'm going 4. Yeah.
4 across the board.
The only other thing, which is, and it just took me out of the movie just a little bit, and I don't know if it was meant to be a reference, but Borden's, his jail number or whatever, the placard he had around his neck was D23.
Yeah.
Which D23 is, it's a Disney thing.
It's like
D23.
Disney Expo, right?
Yeah, and it's based, Disney is D, and then 23, I think, is the year he was born. But yeah, there's a big expo, D23, and Touchstone did release this, which is a Disney-owned. But I don't know if they would be that blatant to put that kind. It's like watching a movie that ILM had their hands in, and you see the 1138, which they hide everywhere. This was a little in your face. I don't know if it was meant to be a call out to Disney, but it made me giggle.
So The Prestige. If you haven't seen it and you're not spoiled by it, by our conversation, go see it.
You should still watch it.
Yeah.
Just to be able to, oh yeah, look at that. Yep. Now I see it. Yeah.
So we have a confessional to do now. And I think in honor of the start of the Halloween season, this question has been picked.
Confessionals.
And our confessional this week is, what movie as a child traumatized you? So who should start with this one?
I think Mike. We haven't heard much from Mike today.
You know what, Jim? I'm going to need your help on this. Because it's not a movie. It was a TV series.
We'll take that.
Night Gallery.
No. We may have to come back to me.
Was it Night Stalker?
Was it Night Stalker?
Was it Kolchak? Kolchak the Night Stalker.
And so I'll describe what I can remember of the episode. So it was this one where this witch was, they were kind of in plain sight, but when you dunk their head in water, they would actually come out as this witch.
Ooh.
And it kept me up forever. Night Stalker? Did someone say Night Stalker?
There is a show called Night Stalker,
Kolchak, right?
With Darren McGavin.
He was it's kind of like a pre-X-Files kind of where he was always searching for these monsters or these weird goings-on.
This might be it. So yes, there it is. There is my lame example of what scared me when I was a kid because I can't even remember it clearly.
Do we get to watch this now? Can we find this episode?
Yeah, let me Google it. Witch dunked head water.
It should come right up. That is so funny that you mentioned that, though, because there was an episode of, and I only found out that it was Night Stalker years later, was an episode. It was like this Goron-like green creature that broke through this wall of this government facility, and it freaked the hell out of me. And years later, I looked it up and found out that it was Kolchak, Night Stalker.
See, Jim, I was absolutely counting on you as I opened up about this moment in my life. Nothing. Let's move on to Jeff.
All right. We're going to go movies. Obviously, Jaws is a little too, as a 7-year-old, I think we were all probably traumatized. So I'm not going to go there. And I'm not going to force you to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street as well, because I think we all agree that was very scary. So I am going to go, not really as a kid, but early teens, American Werewolf in London.
Ooh.
What a big baby.
I know. You know what it was? Is that my dad lived on a farm, and he had a neighbor who just happened to have HBO, and the kid that lived there was friends with my brother, Glenn Knapp. And we used to go over there every other Saturday, and we watched whatever was on HBO. Didn't matter. American Werewolf in London, that opening scene, that attack, is pretty indelible. And then the subsequent feverish dreams that he has, and then the crazy transformation. I remember walking back to my dad's house in the fields and just losing my mind that something was going to come out.
Oh, come out of the moors and attack you?
Yeah, because we were 5 feet away from the cornfields. You know, again, on the farm, you were completely surrounded by fields. And I know, growing up there, they'd go, you have foxes and raccoons and woodchucks and deer and all kinds of other crazy critters. So,
I'm so glad that's your pick. That's a very good Halloween movie for us to watch.
I think that is.
It's a much better movie than my pick. I'm sad to say. All right, my pick comes from a childhood reared on Saturday afternoon movies on WOR, WPIX, and they would show stuff that a kid should really not be watching, that a kid would have just open access to. So I watched a number of movies that have stuck with me. And the one that scared me the most when I was a little kid after seeing it, just irrationally so, was the sequel to The Blob called Beware the Blob. That was the actual title of this movie. Beware
the Blob.
The Blob.
What was the frightening bit about it?
It's an early 70s movie, and it's got this soundtrack with just a high-pitched kind of note going throughout the whole thing. So there's that aspect of it. It's almost like the Psycho music, how it just kind of builds to the terror. But there's also a lot of scenes where there's one scene where a hippie, because it takes place in 1972, that's when the movie was made, where a hippie gets his hair cut because he needs to get a job, and the barber puts his head back into a sink full of blob because the blob has come up in the sink. There's a scene where the blob is just in his easy chair, and the guy
never got his haircut again.
It's terrible. It's all these real life situations where you could you could possibly get eaten by the blob. And there's a lot of, like, in the way that a 70s movie often would be, it has a lot of bizarre music, a lot of bizarre dialogue, like scenes that really don't make sense. It's just kind of like a nightmarish scenario. And it was directed by Larry Hagman, I Dream of Jeannie Jr. fame.
Sure.
It's got a lot of cameos in it. Dick Van Dyke is in it. Burgess Meredith is in it. Cindy Williams is in it. And there's other people that I'm sure I'm not thinking of now.
But not Steve McQueen from the original Blob.
Not Steve McQueen from the original Blob, no. And the original Blob didn't scare me that much, but this for some reason did. And every time it was on, I had to watch it, even though I knew it would terrify me. And it would give me nightmares.
That's like as a kid.
Watch it.
I had to watch Lassie, even though I was going to cry like a baby every episode.
And I watched it. And I watched it maybe 10 years ago as a movie night with a bunch of friends, and we just laughed and laughed because it's really played for laughs. It's not a scary movie by any means, and it's not meant to be. It's just like one of these campy throwaway sequel. It's got a lot of jokes in it, but for some reason as a kid, it terrified me. I had nightmare after nightmare about this movie. So that's my pick, and it is on YouTube, so we can watch it.
Okay, so the goal is to actually once a week we're going to tie these in and watch these through the month of October.
Yes, so these would be our classic picks for October.
We're gonna have
to dig.
Maybe I should pick again.
Give us a few days. I think we'll be able to figure this out.
I'm looking at the entire season 1 of Call Check, and
I somehow don't think this is Night Stalker because
it's got to be like Night Gallery.
Yeah, maybe it is, but we'll figure it out.
Or it could be even like a Alfred Hitchcock Presents. There was some scary crap that they put on those shows.
If we can't find this, I would also go with Soylent Green, which I just found to be disturbing.
Soylent Green is... Oh, wait, am I going to ruin it?
Yeah, don't ruin it. It's not like Soylent Red. It's not like Soylent Blue or Soylent Gray. It's Soylent Green.
Soylent Green.
I think they had different colors in that movie of Soylents, didn't they?
Yes, they did, didn't they?
They did, yeah. Soylent White. There were different tastes to each one.
Is that what's his name? Chuck
Heston.
Chuck Heston.
With wearing his probably silk scarf, as he normally does.
Okay. All right. We got some movies going on there.
Homework. So next week we are looking at, tell us, Jeff, because this is your classic pick. So why don't you tell us what our main feature is going to be as well?
The main feature, I think we are going to follow up with our discussion concerning the new director of James Bond 25th, which is this Cary Joy Fukunaga. And I guess right now his big claim to fame is he has this limited series on Netflix called Maniac with Emma Stone and Jonah Hill. I don't even know how I would describe this. It just looks like weird experiments with people, brain perception things going on.
So yeah, I think it's one of these things where the less we know about it, the better going in. So
maybe.
But we'll be fully prepared to tell you all about it.
There you go. So yes, it looks intriguing, and so I'm going to pair that with a classic movie. I went back and forth depending on what we chose for our main feature, but I'm going to go with this because it has a little David Bowie tie-in. His son directed this movie with Sam Rockwell.
Oh yes,
and it is on Netflix right now. It is called Moon.
Nice one. Have you seen this, Mike?
No, I don't believe I have.
It is another kind of mind bender. Reality, what's going on type of thing. Am I losing my mind? So hopefully it'll pair up nicely. If not, then I apologize in advance.
I think it will.
Yeah. And it's a relatively new movie. I think it came out in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it is.
So I do own this on disc, but like I said, I think it's on Netflix. There you go.
You've got your marching orders. If you want to watch along with us, feel free. Again, thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you very much. We definitely appreciate you people coming back week after week.
Yes.
So we make it all worthwhile.
Yes, you do.
And next week, Mike and I will be at New York Comic Con trolling around, and maybe we'll bring back some exclusive swag.
We will not be there next week. We will be there the week after.
Oh, it's the following week. I'm jumping ahead. You are right. Don't forget it. All right, gentlemen. Another show in the books.
All right.
25th.
Yes, happy anniversary.
Yeah. Bye.
Do you, Michael Caine? Did you see him in The Dark Knight Rises? And his voice gets even more emotional than it's ever done in the past before. I don't want to bury you, Batman. I will not put you into the ground in a little box. I will not do it, Master Bruce. I will not do it.
I'm not going to bury another Batman.
Another Batman? How many Batmans has he been burying? How many are there? I've buried 14 Batmen
I've buried
so far.
14 Batmen.
And a little pointy ears
I'm
in a box.
not going to bury another nylon cloak with pointy ears that people wear at birthday parties.
With a little belt, a very wide belt that is flattering to a man with an expanded girth. I won't do that to you, Master Bruce. I will not do it to you.